Hello, this is Anando Anunna Chattopadhyay. I am homosexual and I'm genderqueer. And the short recording that I'm making is of my experiences at the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, where I had joined in 2010 for my PhD in neuroscience. 2010 was a year of flux. The Supreme Court hadn't exactly ruled on the section governing unnatural behaviors. The Delhi High Court ruling was considered to be federal in nature. There was a lot of debate about it. There was a lot of backlash against the community. And I would say that the majority in India were anti-LGBT rights. Now, in this kind of a scenario and in this context, I joined the campus, which is populated not only by people from the sciences, but also has a major crowd from engineering, including masters in engineering. Initially, I was a little scared. You have to understand, I've been effeminate since I was a child. And now I know that I'm genderqueer. But growing up in India during the 1990s, we did not have any role models, we did not have any popular newspapers carrying articles, we did not have publicly accessible political figures or film stars who used to talk about us. And I was, as many effeminate boys have had to undergo, I have had to also go through my share of humiliation, harassment, intimidation, bullying, and that leaves mental scars. And of course those are scars that I am still, and I'm sure many of my sisters are still trying to overcome. Though I was a little on my guard during the initial time at IISc, I was soon surrounded by a very loving bunch of friends who I still have after years, after 10 years. They're still my friends. And I did come across professors who are quite openly LGBT, and I came across, over time I came across seniors who are queer, and they were quite active in the civil rights scene. And a lot of it gave me strength to be myself. And of course, for society that becomes a problem, because the strength to be myself means that here is a person, here is a boy who is so feminine and is not quote unquote controlling himself in public, right? And one of my first really dark experiences in IISc was when someone wrote outside my hostel door, "Bobby Darling lives here." And of course there was a heightened level of antagonism that I was already facing in the hostel, and it was mostly from the boys who had come to do engineering, and they were masters boys. And I really did not think of it too much till the time this was written outside my hostel door. And I'm sure it was a group act. But I also remember rubbing it off and writing my reply to it. And I have photographs of both their comment and my replies to it, just in case it will ever be required in the future. But you have to remember, this is a time when there weren't exactly laws there to protect us. This is 2020 and still there are no anti-discriminatory laws in India. One of the most stark things that I remember that happened to me after this comment was written on my hostel door was I remember taking a long shower, and I remember going and getting my long hair cut and getting a crew cut, and I still don't know, it's still inexplicable to me, but many people have told me that in instances of anger and in instances of shock and in instances where your self-defense, your modality of self-defense gets really heightened, you tend to do this. you cut your hair. I still remember it so clearly, going to the barber's shop and asking him to just chop it all off. And I did take pride in my hair, I did. Of course, this was not the only thing. In general, in hostel, no one used to talk to me. Also, in the mess where I used to go for my food, unnecessary comments were passed. If I would just take my food and I did not provoke anyone, I would just quietly eat my food with my friends in one corner of the mess. But if I take a cup of tea or if I take some food and I'm walking down the narrow alley of the mess to reach the table at the back, some or the other comment will be passed. Hijra ja raha hai, gay person is going. Oh look, someone told me he sleeps with boys. Looking back, it actually sounds quite funny. This was mostly during my initial years in NIAS, when I did not have much of a voice. As I became more of a veteran, so to say, and I joined Queer-IISc, QUASI, which were LGBT right groups in the campus. And in the meanwhile, I'd also come out to my parents in the third year of my PhD. I had a supportive advisor, I had great friends. It wasn't that easy for others to start intimidating me. Did it completely stop? Absolutely not. Did people suddenly start becoming friendly? Did they talk to me nicely? Of course not. There was always a level of derogation in their voice. There always was that look of, you are a second-class citizen. You are below us. You are not one of us. Which is very, very dominant. And many people might think we are paranoid, but trust me, many of us who are effeminate, we have been seeing this, we have been observing this, we have been at the receiving end of this since our childhood years. So we can read it, we can perceive it beautifully. So don't call us paranoid. There were other friends of mine in the campus, one of whom was even more effeminate than me, and people mercilessly, and these are men and women of knowledge. These are men and women who have come to do research and science. And this was their mentality. This goes on to show the level of social conditioning. This goes on to show how much our society and our culture is anti-LGBT. Thankfully, things are slowly changing. But by the time I left IISc, I remember I was still cautious. But I do remember that there were people, there was a little bit more respect. A lot of things that happened in between. The Supreme Court made homosexuality illegal in the country by upholding Section 377 in 2012. And then I think in 2018, the Constitution bench removed Section 377 once and for all in a 5-0 historic ruling. Things, of course, have changed a little, but I would still say the majority, and mostly those who are genderqueer, who are gender atypical, they bear the brunt of anti-LGBT behavior. Are things getting better? Yes, things are slowly getting better. Maybe not at a rate that many of us would have liked, but it is slowly getting better. And I do really hope that people who are going to join the campus after me are not going to face the kind of verbal abuse or the kind of non-verbal cues and verbal cues of derogation, of psychological abuse, of needless mercilessness. I really hope they don't.